Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone at the webinar, Will Taijimen Finally Be Allowed to Live in Peace, co-organized by CESNUR and Human Rights Without Frontiers on May 16th at the International Day of Living Together in Peace. So now I'd like to offer my introduction, Spiritualities and World Peace, Long Road of Transcultural Dialogue. The United Nations General Assembly declared May 16th the International Day of Living Together in Peace in its resolution 72-130. What's the focus of this day besides of the general idea of the word peace? The special day underlines the need to accept the differences between people, groups, and cultures, embracing them, respect them, and listen to them. While one may say that the idea of world peace is common to all, this does not mean that we should try to ignore differences. The purpose of this very day is precisely to emphasize that we are beautifully different from each other, and yet achieving peace is possible. Peace is a noble idea, but also a practical necessity to be able to live and realize one's full potential as a human being. Without peace, there is no freedom, and in times of war and conflict, basic human rights are violated. In this sense, the idea of need for peace transcends all cultures and times. It is supranational and supra-religious. But it's religions and various currents of spirituality that often emphasize it or make it their main aim, as other institutions of social life, while often focus on material conditions, may derive profits or political benefits from conflicts. To fully understand the need of tolerance, inclusion, and the beauty of diversity, one needs to be aware of it. In the middle of the 19th century, when people in the West were more and more aware of the religious and philosophical systems of the East, there was a need not only to understand them, but also to reconcile in one's awareness of the existence of so many important and valuable currents of thought and religion existing simultaneously. And when universities developed academic studies, spiritual currents also appeared, in the aim of which was on one hand to appreciate this diversity, and on the other to find some common core in them. Undoubtedly, the important cultural phenomenon in this respect was contemporary modern theosophy, a current built around the charismatic figure of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. One of the basic tenets of theosophy was the comparative study of religions and philosophies. But what constituted the inalienable core of theosophy and the most important goal of the Theosophical Society was the realization of the universal brotherhood. It was impossible to become a theosophist if one did not accept the goal of the equality of people regardless of race, creed, sex, caste of color. A number of initiatives and institutions subordinated to this aim, stemming from the philosophical core of theosophy, unity of all being, were implemented to achieve this goal. Despite studies on diversity, therefore, what was in common was pursued, and what certainly expresses the common need of humanity is peace and universal brotherhood. The continuator and promoter of the idea of peace and its practical implementation was undoubtedly a theosophist, Nicholas Roerich. Roerich was mostly known as a painter, but also writer, philosopher, archaeologist, and public figure and activist. He was responsible for so-called Roerich Pact, that is the Treaty of the Protection of Artistic and Scientific Institutions and Historic Monuments. Roerich Pact, signed in 1935, was the first international treaty dedicated to protection of artistic and scientific institutions and historical monuments. The core of the pact was the idea of peace of civilizations. But what was very important, Roerich understood that the peace in today's world is almost impossible without engagement of the world political leaders. All this happened before World War II, after which the United Nations established a series of days dedicated to peace. A whole century has passed since theosophy and similar currents of spirituality blazed the paths of supracultural, supranational, and supra-religious understanding of people for peace. Today, when cultural diversity and multiplicity is obvious to everyone, but there is no end to conflicts of various kinds, work for peace is a necessity. Taijiman has been taking numerous actions for peace for many, many years, and the bell of world peace and love rings all over the world. It involves many world leaders who are advocating religious freedom and human rights, calling for acting with conscience. It is unimaginable that an organization that has been working for the good of others for decades, promoting tolerance, diversity, and appealing to people to be guided by conscience, experiences intolerance, exclusion, and violations of human rights. It must therefore be emphasized that in the context of Taijiman and peace, we not only focus on what activities the movement promotes, but also that Taijiman itself experiences unnecessary conflicts, constant harm, and unequal treatment, which has been going on for over 2 decades now. The International Day of Living Together in Peace was established to mobilize efforts of the international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity. So we should also focus on mobilization of world community so the Taijimen could live in peace. Now I'd like to present a video, the first video in our meeting.
Imagine a world with fewer conflicts, less violence, less individualism, less predation towards nature. Imagine a world where difference would be an asset. Imagine a world where education for peace would be a priority. Imagine a world where humanity would build its future with one another and not one against the other. This world is possible if each of us works together in synergy with the other to build a society of living better together in peace. It is this man, Sheikh Khaled Bentounis, who in 2014 had the idea to lance a worldwide momentum for the creation of the International Day of Living Together in Peace. This idea was born in Oran, Algeria, during the International Feminine Congress for a Culture of Peace. The first action was to launch an international awareness-raising campaign, mobilizing all parts of civil society. March 2015 saw the first presentation of ASA International NGOs project. Several events were organized around the world, bringing a growing support to this initiative, particularly in France, Turkey, Algeria, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, and Canada. After 3 long years and numerous meetings in order to convince more and more countries, in September 2017, Algeria tabled the resolution for the adoption of the International Day of Living Together in Peace. On December 8th, 2017, at its 72nd session, the UN General Assembly unanimously adopts, by a consensus of 193 member states, the resolution establishing May 16th each year as the International Day of Living Together in Peace. This day is an invitation for everyone to commit to a more just and fraternal world. A means to strengthen the bonds of mutual respect and reconciliation of the members of the human family. Let us commit on May 16th to join our efforts and face the challenge that awaits us. All of us will gain from this.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to listen to the presentations of the European and American scholars. And as a first presenter, I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Massimo Introvigne, the founder of the Center for the Studies of New Religions and editor-in-chief Beetle Winter magazine. Massimo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. There is the beauty of living together in peace we are celebrating today, and when there is war and peace. First published in 1869 in its entirety by Russian writer Leo Tolstoy, or Tolstoy as he is called in Russian, many regard it as the greatest novel of all times. Most educated Russians have read it, and some Westerners too, although others are scared by its monumental size. I read it as a young man. Although Tolstoy was not a communist, his book was celebrated by the Soviet regime. During World War II, Tolstoy was quoted by Stalin more often than Lenin or Marx. There was a stamp celebrating the book, and even paradoxically, a Soviet warship named after Tolstoy. The Soviet reading of Tolstoy is now perpetuated by Putin, who also likes to quote, or rather misquote, the great writer. This interpretation, which Putin learned in Soviet schools, is selective and ultimately fraudulent. However, it was successful. As a recent biographer of Tolstoy observed, the Soviet interpretation still dominates, for example, Wikipedia, and can be summarized as follows. Tolstoy was the Russian Homer who transformed Russia's victory against Napoleon into a great epic, but unfortunately, in the last decades of his life, he developed some strange or cultic religious ideas. It is true that only War and Peace and the other great novel by Tolstoy, Anna Karenina, are read by everybody. The Russian writer's later texts on religion are read only by my own tribe, religious scholars. There, he criticized the Russian Orthodox Church and tried to establish his own new religion. The Russian Orthodox Church excommunicated Tolstoy in 1901 and refused to bury him when he died in 1910. His was, in fact, the first public civil funeral in Russia. Yet, it is appropriate to remember Tolstoy in this UN Day of Observance because his reflection on peace, war, and how we can really live together in peace are no discontinuity and continued through his whole life. As a young aristocrat, Tolstoy enrolled in the army in 1851 at age 23 to escape his gambling debts, and first fought in Russia's colonial war in the Caucasus. His first short stories reflected the experience of these wars as noble fights, following traditional rules, and with a certain romantic beauty. However, in 1854, Tolstoy was called to serve as an officer in the bloody Crimean War, and that was something different. It was a modern war with massive casualties caused by artillery, and it changed his perception of war. He was still ready to celebrate the heroism of some, but in general saw war as a senseless carnage. This ambivalence about war is reflected in War and Peace, something Tolstoy didn't consider a novel, but rather a book about philosophy or history. Tolstoy regarded war as unavoidable, but challenged the dominant view that it and its outcome resulted from the decisions of a few great men such as Napoleon. He believed that war was the result of many unpredictable factors and that the behavior of tens of thousands of men, from local commanders to simple soldiers, determined its outcome more than the decisions taken by a few great generals. The Soviets, and now Putin, took it as a celebration of the common Russian peasant soldier who in the end defeated Napoleon. However, through the pages of War and Peace also runs a sense of the pointless brutality of the war and the nostalgia for living together in peace and its sweetness. This is what makes War and Peace an exceptional book, and this is also what both Stalin and Putin deliberately decided to ignore. In fact, during the 1860s, and most clearly in the last 40 years of his life, Tolstoy moved to a radical religion-based pacifism. He did understand, and the theme is of great actuality today, that absolute pacifism could favor those who promote wars of aggression, but believed, rightly or wrongly, that forms of non-violent resistance can ultimately defeat the aggressor. It is important to remember that it was by corresponding with Tolstoy that Gandhi developed his own theory of non-violence. Just as Gandhi, Tolstoy believed that peace can only be based on spirituality. He explored theosophy, just mentioned by Carolina, though unlike Gandhi, Tolstoy never became a member of the Theosophical Society. He explored Buddhism, traditional Chinese culture, to which he devoted a book, various forms of Christian mysticism, including the one advocated by the Quakers, as well as anarchism and utopian socialism. Finally, he developed his own religion. It was Christian in the sense that Tolstoy regarded the teachings of Jesus as superior to those by Eastern religions, which caused his break with Theosophy's co-founder Elena Blavatsky, who held the opposite view. But it was a Christianity without institutions or dogmas, based on the Sermon on the Mount, turning the other cheek, non-resistance, and non-violence. He believed that based on these principles, small communities might be created, while people will really live together in peace. I visited one of them, Churaevka in Connecticut, founded in 1920 by Tolstoy's son Ilya. It attracted the attention of Nicholas Roerich, who went there and designed the chapel, the small chapel of Churaevka. When I visited Churaevka in 2018, only one Russian old lady remained of the original community, but it maintained its original and very distinctive spiritual atmosphere. Tolstoy will not disagree with us if we would say that for him, peace is not primarily a political achievement, but comes from conscience. This is, of course, the essential teaching of Taiji men. And I will add that Taiji men are Tolstoyan in the sense that they firmly oppose injustice, but do not react to it with violence, having chosen the path of a non-violent, principled, and conscientious resistance. A final teaching by Tolstoy that is relevant for the Taijimen case is that although he was a radical pacifist, he did not condone aggression and injustice. He never suggested that injustice should be accepted or tolerated. He taught that it could be victoriously opposed by non-violent means. Perhaps not in all situations today is his teaching applicable, but Gandhi proved that in some cases it can become a successful political strategy. Similarly, Taijimen's love for peace and for a peace based on love does not and cannot mean that they should accept a peace with Taiwanese institutions that would end the Taijimen case based on falsehood or injustice. Taijimen do want to solve its case and to live together in peace with other Taiwanese citizens, including those in the government. But a true peace can only mean that injustice is acknowledged and justice is restored. Otherwise, we will have a false end of the Taijimen case, a travesty of peace that will objectively reinforce injustice and corruption. This was not Tolstoy's idea of living together in peace, and this is not what Taijimen wants and needs to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Massimo, for the fascinating presentation. And now we'd like to give floor to Mr. Marco Respinti, Director in charge of the Bitter Winter magazine.
Thank you. Peace is the most desirable of human goals. At the same time, it is truly the most difficult social condition to be. Peace is the most desirable of human goals because it is the ideal on which human beings concentrate all their hopes and desires. When we humans say peace, we in fact envision a condition of serenity in which things happen in harmony, people try to help each other, and common good is possible. We do not, of course, mean that all should be perfect because perfection does not belong to the human realm. What we mean is a condition in which things, though not perfect, can be handled smoothly and through mutual understanding, avoiding conflict. Even problems can be dealt with in peace if we have the right attitude to face them calmly and sincerely. Peace is a state of mind. Many times in this series of webinars on the Taijimen case, we define peace as a spiritual achievement. We also repeatedly underline that peace is not only the absence of war. There are, in fact, many conflictual situations that can destroy peace among human beings without involving an open warfare fought with weapons. And peace is also not pacifism or an ideology that ends up offering a caricatural solution to serious problems. Let me express this through the words of Pope Pius XII from a speech he delivered in 1952 to a famous association that had the term peace in its own Latin name, Pax Christi, or the peace of Christ. Quote, "The Church believes in peace and will not be tired of reminding two responsible statesmen and politicians that even today's political and economic complications can be resolved amicably with the goodwill of all parties concerned. On the other hand, the Church must take into account the dark powers that have always operated in history. This is also why she is wary of any pacifist propaganda in which the word peace is abused to disguise unconfessed aims." End of quote. These were the years at the heart of the Cold War, and the Pope warned that peace should be not confused with surrender and compromise. This is the true important point. No compromise can be admitted with error and evil. If humans compromise with error and evil, they will never have peace. This is why peace always goes hand in hand with justice. Peace is the sum, or better, the common name of all things we aspire to in life, for us and our beloved ones. There is one reason why peace is difficult to obtain. To secure peace, personal efforts are important, but are not sufficient. Peace is a truly choral achievement and can be reached only when people work together, even labor together, and we all know how this is difficult. Nonetheless, peace would not be peace if it were only an individual enterprise. Peace is, in fact, the most florid and rich expression of human sociality. Peace is itself a supreme social feature, and it is so desirable because it is compliant with the human nature. The Greek philosopher Aristotle famously defined humans as social human beings, meaning that sociality and even sociability, or the attitude of being inclined to meet and spend time with other people, are intrinsic human characteristics. Even more, they are essential feature of human nature. At this point, we can safely say that peace is the best expression of the intrinsic, characteristic, and unalienable social dimension of human beings. If this is true, it means that to achieve peace, people should be led to discover again, appreciate, and follow their intimate human nature where sociality and sociability lie. It means that even peace is the product of education, mutual education indeed, as most of human social issues are. What, after all, is our series of webinars on the Tajuman case all about, if it is not if it is not a grand exercise in rediscovering the fundamental peaceful dimension of human relations through mutual education? Webinar after webinar, we address a number of relevant topics, aptly connecting them to the Tajman case to explore, learn, and rediscover what went wrong in human relations and try to suggest way of reparations. So the Tajman case serves as an example of human unrest and an opportunity to discuss solution to it. The Taijiman sufferings can teach many lessons about human distress. In our webinars, we try to answer the question why the relations between the Taijiman movement and some officials and branches of the Taiwanese government did not develop in the proper way. None of us has or ever had the magic wand to detect and solve problems immediately. We learn from each other and try to see how things can be adjusted. This is called working toward peace. After so many profound meetings and deep discussions, we have all understood that the Taijiman case is an open wound in the concept of peace. Taijiman Shifu, our grandmaster, and these are disciples have been offended and slandered, accused of crimes they did not commit, unjustly brought to court, and even more unjustly detained, hit with seizure of their sacred land and other properties, neglected in their basic human rights. We cannot call peaceful a country that allows this to happen, and even more seriously, do not redress this awful situation once truth has been established and injustice done to Taijimen proven several times. Yes, Taiwan does not live in peace. It lives in the absence of war, but will not live in peace until the Taijiman case remains unsolved. This is true for all of Taiwan, for all Taiwanese citizens. The Taiwanese government needs to guarantee peace to Taiwan if it wants to guarantee peace to Taiwan. The Taiwanese government needs to respond to the wrongdoings committed by some of its officials and branches and restore justice, serenity, tranquility for Taiwan. Only if it does, it will peace be fully secured in Taiwan. As outside observers and commentators, we cannot dictate to the Taiwanese government the practical ways to do this. Any such pretense would be arrogant, unjust, and unnecessary. But we invoke peace in Taiwan, and we ask the government of Taiwan, which we assume to be well-intentioned, to solve the Taiwan case and make the country, its rules, a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Respinti, for this important contribution. Now I would like to invite the third speaker, who's gonna present the testimonies later. It is Mrs. Camilla Marin, the Deputy Director of Soteria International from Denmark. Please, Camilla, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Thank you very much to all. And I'll start addressing the question, the title of this webinar. Will Taijimen finally be allowed to live in peace? Today is the International Day of Living Together in Peace. United Nations Declaration on International Day of Living Together in Peace says, working together with religious leaders to promote tolerance and understanding among human beings. For a spiritual community, to live in peace means that all its environment, social and political, everything to be in peace. The community is created by individuals. Many factors are influential in the formation of the individual personality. Families and media, as well as cultural and religious communities themselves, should support the development of open-minded individuals capable of critical thinking and of constructive dialogue with others. Education is combating ignorance, breaking down stereotypes, building trust and mutual respect, and promoting sincere support for the shared values of living together. For this, institutions of the states develop projects in collaboration with religious communities to promote shared values and living together. In Taiwan, we can see, among others, the example of Taijimen spiritual community and their participation to national and international events calling for peace, love, conscience, and thus helping people unite in the hearts and encouraging people to search for their inner peace and harmony. Still, we can notice situations when national or international institutions obscure the responsibilities of government for upholding human rights and create obstacles to calling human rights violating states to account. Again, as example, we can see the situation of Taijimen community, which face a non-application of the acquittal decision of the court in Taiwan, as the National Taxation Bureau takes its biased decision beyond the court's one. The human rights activist and writer Aaron Rhodes, president of the Forum for Religious Freedom Europe and former executive director of the International Helsinki Federation for Human Rights, refers in one of his articles to the multilateral cooperation, which actually can be applied to the national level also. I quote, "States that honor human rights need to resist the bureaucratization of human rights, which buries issues in discussions about structures, processes, and coordination in sterile and exhausting language. And they must ensure that their own human rights advocacy is not smothered by bureaucratic multilateral cooperation that balances out their concerns against those of partners that wish to ignore human rights violations and water down standards. I end the quotation. The violation to freedom of conscience expressed in civil society through government restrictions or through popular hostility against freedom of religion or belief are a significant factor of tensions and conflicts. Quoting Dr. Hong, the leader of Taijimen spiritual community, governments should take a stance for human rights protection and encourage the development of multiculturalism, and they should not use laws or taxation to curb people's freedom to pursue culture. Only freedom and human rights will allow a culture to develop and flourish. I end the quotation. In the case of Taijimen, their human rights and freedoms were violated by state representatives. After years of investigation and court trials, on July 13, 2007, the Supreme Court found Taijimen not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violation of tax codes. Yet, the Taxation Bureau continued to issue unjustified tax bills to Taijimen and later even transferred the case to the Administrative Enforcement Agency. For years, Taijimen's land and assets have been illegally seized and auctioned. I consider the webinar today an important point of human rights activity to hinder the spiritual and religious aspect of life to be hijacked by political and financial motives. Human rights, and especially spiritual human rights, are a building block for the maintenance of peace. We are spiritual beings, whether we acknowledge it or not. Before inviting the Taijimen Dizi to present their testimonies, we will have a short video named "What is the Truth About the Taijimen Case?" Let's watch it together.
And the Ministry of Finance reneged on their promise to revoke the tax bill. The National Tax Bureau illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Taijimen. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the royal government officials' conscience? Where are justice and human rights? What is the truth about the Taijimen case? Taiwan Supreme Court found Taijimen not guilty of tax evasion or any other charges. The National Tax Bureau and the Ministry of Finance reneged on their promise to revoke the tax bill. The National Tax Bureau illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Taijimen. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the real government of just conscience? Where are justice and human rights? The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace. The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace.
In Taiwan, we at Little Winter saw at work Taliban of the National Tax Bureau or Taliban of the Administrative Enforcement Agency, 55-year-long persecution of a peaceful spiritual movement in a democratic country such as Taiwan. The Taijimen case is internationally exemplary and important, and yet we plan to continue our campaign about it. Our voice will not be silenced until the voice of justice will speak and solve the case.
Thank you very much for this video, which is synthesizing several of the situations and problems that happen to Taiji men. And now we will invite one by one our guests, Tizi disciples, which are presenting some of their experiences as testimonies related with what happened to them and what is significant for them in their lives related with Taiji men community. We have first Mrs. Julianne Kao, university lecturer, and she will present us about calling on government leaders to abide by the International Declaration on Living Together in Peace. Please, the floor is yours. Please open the microphone.
Thank you.
Good.
Dear every scholar and the expert, my name is Julian, and I'm honored to meet you on air today. May 16, which is also the International Day of Living Together in Peace. According to the definition of the International Red Cross, living together in peace means accepting difference and being able to listen to, recognize, respect, and appreciate others in order to live together in peace and harmony. To achieve the goal of the International Declaration of Living Together in Peace, a head of state or government should promote peace and sustainable development, especially by working with communities, religious leaders, and other partners to work hard on promoting tolerance and understanding among human beings. The International Day of Living Together in Peace is also International Day of Light, a celebration by UNESCO in 2017 of the transformation and the hope brought about by physicist and engineer Theodore Mann's first successful laser generation, which brought light further into society. Light is a symbol of life and hope. I once studied in Germany, and after I returned from Germany, I came across the judicial and tax cases of Taiji men, which is internationally recognized, but in Taiwan, it has suffered the longest and the most victims of a major nation human rights possession case since the February 28 incident. On December 19, 1996, prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren lead a large number of police officials to search Taiji-men with abusive power, based only on a false black letter, and brought the Zangmenren of Taiji-men, Dr. Hong Daozi, back for more than 20 hours of interrogation. The Zangmenren and his wife and his Dizi suffered from the disaster. In 2007, after 3 trials, the court ruled that the defendants were not guilty and that they did not owe tax. And in 2009, they were all awarded compensation for wrongful imprisonment, but the illegal tax penalties have not yet been rehabilitated. This case was listed by the Control Yuan as one of the major human rights protection landmark cases in Taiwan. Ms. Tsai Jing on taxation and the human rights of the Chinese Association for Human Rights. She said that tax case of Taiji-men should be decided on the basis of the facts recognized by the criminal judgment. The NTB, without any legal basis for taxation issue and the exorbitant tax bill to Taiji-men, violating procedural justice, and without investigating the evidence in according with authority or giving the parties an opportunity to be heard. But penalty was unlawful and should have been revoked. However, the NTB insists on enforcing the process of the land that Dr. Hong Daozi intended to give to his Dizi as a site for self-cultivation as a result of the 1992 comprehensive income tax, which had been determined in 2005. For 27 years, Taiji-men has kept seeking administrative tax relief within a total of 17 times, while the NTB has repeatedly reissued tax bills. The Supreme Administrative Court issued a judgment number 422 on July 26, 2018, recognizing Taiji-men as a Qigong and martial arts group, and announcing that 7,401 of the survey result indicated that the honorific gift was a gift. In addition, the decision clearly states that the 1992 consolidated tax case was not decided in time for the trial of the criminal verurteilt, and the announcement of the new evidence. Judgment number 422 confirmed that the 1992 decision was an erroneous decision. There are many experts and scholars inside and outside the country who have supposed the legal theory of tax law, civil and criminal litigation law in the case. If so many experts and the scholars are not wrong, then the tax officials are wrong in their opinion and usage. Otherwise, the law itself is law. If the former is the case, the government should come forward to explain clearly and correct the mistake. If the latter is the case, the government authorities should be responsible for solving the difficulties of the people. I wonder why government departments could not abide by the international oath of living together in peace and provide the necessary assistance to the people. The Taijimen case is a cross-administrative and judicial issue involving the NTV, the judicial yuan system, and the administrative enforcement system of the Ministry of Justice. In Taiwan, the judiciary and the executive branch have been facing the legal problems of the people's struggle for 27 years. In the case of Taijimen, it is clear that there is a law to follow, but the executive branch always use rule of law as a shield against the mistake. But is it legal, sensible, and reasonable? But what if it is not? The people will lose light of hope for living together in peace in their hearts. And there is no law to rely on, because civil servants who use the law as a shield to refuse to deal with problems for the people in Asia are using the power of the entire country to refuse the people. My children went to kindergarten in Germany, and what impressed me was that the word of the kindergarten, it was positive. Aspire to be a civil servant. No matter in Germany or in Taiwan, several servants have to pass difficult exams to become civil servant. However, in addition to doing the administration of the civil service in accordance with the law, the civic servants actually have to be active in their work, as they represent the country and deal with the people's affairs for the country. Cannot be negativist. The number line in mathematics, just like this beard. I hope, can you see? No? Sorry. Number line in mathematics, for example, with 0 as the reference point. Left side is positive number, 1, 2, 3, and more. The right side is negative number, minus 1, 2, 3. The so-called active duty is the government to do more and can do but don't do. This is 0. It's no duty of conscience. And they should do but don't do is negative number. In the case of Taijimen, the Taipei Administrative Court sent a letter to the National Taxation Bureau and the Hsinchu Executive Office, requesting them to withdraw and stop enforcing and not to auction off the land for Taijimen's practitioner place. This is consistent with positive numbers and makes the people feel the light of positive numbers of civil servant. While the NTV and the Hsinchu executive office make the people feel the darkness of negative numbers. The Taijiman case is a case of long legal facts and a case that has been bound by a long decision for many years, and a case that demonstrates the strong fundamentals of the executive branch in enforcing the law despite the official issued stay of execution by other judicial bodies. On today's United Nations International Day of Living Together in Peace, we hope that the Taiwan's administrative and judicial leaders will indeed follow the United Nations Declaration on International Day of Living Together in Peace, working together with religious leaders to promote tolerance and understanding among human beings and return the land to Taijimen. Thank you, experts and scholars, for listening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Julian Cao. And indeed, a very good correlation that today is the International Day of Living Together in Peace and also the International Day of Light. And the symbolism that the light is the symbol of life and hope. Very good, your example in this direction. And I also share the question that you indirectly addressed, how actually it is possible that after so many years, the situation is still pending there, even though all defendants were awarded compensation for the wrongful imprisonment, but still the illegal tax penalty have not yet been rehabilitated. It is a question and stays there. And I hope that with so many concerns on your case, the Taiwanese authorities to take a stand and to really correct the situation. And we go now further. We invite Mrs. Mia Wu. She is a nurse practitioner of Taijimen, and also she will speak about peace with yourself, others, and the entire world. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Mia. The International Day of Living Together in Peace originated after the Second World War, when people began to think about how to save future generations from the persecution of war, to live peacefully with each other regardless of race, gender, language, and religion, to accept differences and to listen to, respect, and appreciate others. Therefore, the United Nations General Assembly designated May 16 as the International Day of Living Together in Peace in 2017, calling on the international community to work for peace, tolerance, inclusiveness, and understanding and solidarity. However, since World War II, there have been many wars and conflicts around the world, including the civil war in Burma, the conflict in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the border war between China and India, the crisis in the Taiwan Strait, and the war between Russia and Ukraine that has been going on since last year. All of them are contrary to living together in peace. However, there were examples of living together in peace in the past, such as one of the world's most respected politicians, former South Africa President Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for 26 years for his participation in the anti-racial revolution. During his incarceration, he tried to negotiate with the warden and convinced him to treat us prisoners as human beings. Mandela once said, "In prison, My anger at whites grew less and less, but my hatred of the system grew more and more. I realized that no one is born hating another person because of their color, background, or religion. Later in his tenure, he worked to abolish segregation, achieve racial reconciliation, and eliminate poverty and injustice. I believe that living together in peace can start with individuals by changing their own mentality, learning to live peacefully with their colleagues, and calling on the government to wake up to its conscience so that public power can stop persecuting people. After graduating from college, I joined to the surgical ward of the medical center with the patient to contribute my knowledge. But I started a year of busy, bright, and painful life. At that time, I arrived at the hospital at 7 a.m. every day and couldn't go home until after 10 p.m. I often brought home breakfast and lunch together. After a long day of work, when I handed over to the next shift, I couldn't tell what I had done. I remember one fellow slamming her shift book and saying, "What the hell are you talking about? Do you even know what you are doing?" And she refused to give me a shift. At that moment, I only remember that I was as busy as the gyroscope, turning all day long, with so many things to do that I didn't have time to stop and organize what I had done. Even when I was free, I couldn't recall every path I thought, what I did, and what I should follow up. I didn't know how to get along with my colleagues, how to interact with my patients smartly, and even worse, I became hostile to the people around me now. I started to feel exhausted every day and wanted to give up. And I didn't even have the energy to go to see the doctor. Once I finally went to the hospital and waited for an hour for my turn, only to find that my health insurance card had disappeared. I completely forgot where it was, and when it disappeared, I was so angry at myself that I thought, "Forget it, let me die like this." I didn't even want to look for my health insurance card and went straight home. When my classmates learned of my condition, she was very worried that I would get depression or harm myself, so she recommended me to enter Taiji Man. After practicing Qigong, my physical strength improved, that I felt lighter when I walked. Also, I began to discover my own problems. Sometimes I wanted to ask for help, but I was afraid of being rejected. So I spent a lot of time obsessing over myself. Also, I was very introverted, but I wanted to be friends or talk to others. I was often fighting internally, unable to make peace with myself, and caught up in the criticism and the self-deprecation of others. At Taijimen, I had many opportunities to talk and share with my brothers and sisters. Shifu, brothers and sisters always give me a lot of positive energy and encouragement, which make me brave enough to break through. I started to share on stage, host programs, lead groups, to be enthusiastic, plan and host online forums, and etc., all of which I could ever imagine before. I'm very grateful to my classmates to recommending me to Taiji Men. Great thanks to Shifu and my sisters and brothers for accepting me and growing with me. Allow me to find peace with my inner self and transformed from a moon that only reflected the light of others to a power plant that could generate its own electricity. From the bottom of my heart, I felt that my Shimu, brothers and sisters were the most virtuous and law-abiding people in the world. But such a group of good people were persecuted by the public authorities for 27 years. The first time I went to the Kaidagelan Boulevard to protest, I saw some of my brothers and sisters going to the NTV in an orderly manner. We shouted our demands. After 20 to 30 minutes, the brothers and sisters came out and said, "Brothers and sisters, we will continue to insist on our efforts." They said, "Brothers and sisters, we will continue to work hard. Please return to the side of Kaidagelan Boulevard in an orderly and safe manner." I was stunned. Did this mean that our voice were not loud enough? That our request was not accepted? The case was not resolved? How could this happen? We had worked so hard. As soon as I turned around, my tears immediately fell. My heart ached, and I felt sorry for my Shimu, brothers and sisters, who had been working so hard on this case. They have been working on the criminal case and the tax case since 1996, without stopping for a moment. Even so, the court has ruled in 3 trials that Taiji man is not guilty, has no tax debts, has not violated the tax law, has received the compensation for wrongful imprisonment, and has been recognized as the major human rights protection case by the Control Yuan. In addition, Taiji man won 18 administrative reliefs against the NTV. In accordance with the law, the NTV should have revoked the illegal tax bill on its own, but the illegal tax bills had been changed and resurfaced again and again. The tax bills for 1991 and 1993 to 1996 were all zeroed out. But why were the 1992 tax bill of the same condition not processed in the same way? This even led to the illegal auction of the Taiji man's press and be nationalized. Where is the justice of God? The NTV, the Ministry of Finance, and the executive branch want Taiji man a truth, justice, and an apology. I will continue to work with my brothers and sisters to uphold the goal of legal tax reformation, and I hope that the Taiwanese government will have the determination to reverse the chaotic situation of the law of tax in Taiwan. As a result, the people of Taiwan can have a fair and justice legal tax environment with conscience, where both the people and the government can coexist peacefully. That's all I have want to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mia Wu. And yeah, as you pointed, there are 18 administrative relief on by Taiji man against the National Taxation Bureau, but still the illegal tax bills have been changed and resurfaced again and again. And it is a big question that was addressed in other webinars, how that the tax bills from 1991 and from 1993 to 1996 were all zeroed out, but it was the tax bill of 1992 which actually was creating the entire problem. It is still the question, and we hope that Taiwanese authorities to take in consideration to answer to this. Thank you again. And we will move further to our next speaker. We have with us Mrs. Lydia Quinn. She is system analyst, and she will speak about you and I have the power to create peace. Please, the floor is yours.
Greetings, President, experts, scholars, and interlocutors. Nowadays, the international community is still facing serious problems such as war, climate change, discrimination, and human rights persecution. My 师父 Dr. 洪道子, the 掌门人 of Taiji established the Federation of World Peace and Love in the United States in 2000. We invite heads of state and influential leaders from around the world to ring the bell of world peace and love and make promise of peace to themselves and to the world. 3 of these presidents have avoided war and chaos for the benefit of countless souls by fulfilling the promise of peace they made when they rang the bell. I have seen 师父 never stop working for world peace because of any difficulty. And now 133 countries and 502 leaders have rang the bell. This great compassionate heart has deeply influenced me and made me willing to change myself and exert the influence of love and peace in my life. I was born prematurely and grew up healthy because my grandmother took good care of me. 3 years ago, my grandmother's health deteriorated and she became totally dependent on other people's care. So we had a Vietnamese nurse to take care of her 24 hours a day. However, because of the language barrier and the fact that I was a nurse in a surgical ward before I started my career as a system analyst, whenever I saw that she was not taking care of my grandmother in the right way, it was easy for me to be anxious to correct her, and I did not even trust her very much. I remember once I noticed that my grandmother's ankle bones have turned red, and I anxiously told the nurse, "It's a pressure sore. We need to take care of it as soon as possible." The nurse responded with conviction, "It's not a pressure sore." I explained to her many times that it was a grade 1 pressure sore, but nothing could change her mind. Just when we are at a standstill and our emotions were getting out of control, a voice in my heart reminded me to be thankful. So I calmed myself down, immediately adjusted my heart, and gave thanks to her for taking care of my grandmother 24 hours a day. And when I had a change of heart, I let go of my insistence and asked her, "Why do you think this is not pressure sore?" She replied, "Because my grandmother used to have pressure sores and had a painful expression. That's what pressure sores are." It dawned on me that it was because her perception of pressure sores were different from mine. So I immediately went online and found actual pictures and pressure sores and the diagrams of areas prone to pressure sores, and patiently explained them to her with text translation. Finally, I told her sincerely that if you learn this professional knowledge, it will be very helpful for your future work. She was very happy to hear that. After this incident, I started a friendship with her of mutual respect, mutual understanding, and mutual sharing. I began to discuss with her how to take better care of my grandmother. And I also care about and solve the difficulties she encountered in her care. I have been practicing at Taijimen for many years, and Shifu has taught us to learn good, learn peace, and learn true love, and to be willing to help others in our own lives and to give back to the community with good influence. The state should have practiced such a quality Qigong martial arts cultural group. But instead, in 1996, the state used the law and taxes to persecute the freedom of belief and human rights of Taiji men in the name of religious sweeping. However, Taiwan's judiciary has already ruled in 3 trials that Taiji man is not guilty and does not owe taxes. So how could the executive and taxation authorities disregard the state ruling and forcibly auction of the scheduled land for Taiji man's practice site on August 21st, 2020, and take it back to national ownership? I was there at the auction and watched as the executive branch ignored the court ruling for the sake of its own performance bonus, and even joined hands with the National Taxation Bureau to illegally take the land back into state ownership after the second auction was lost. Taiji man case has been delayed for 27 years. I hope that the officials will face their conscience, face their mistakes, withdraw the illegal tax bills, and return the sacred land of Taiji men as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful to listen your testimony and how much it was counting for you to understand to create peace, and how you quoted your Shifu, learn good, learn peace, and learn true love, and to be willing to help others in your own lives and to give back to the community with good influence. Wonderful idea to follow for having the possibility of living in peace. And we move further to our next speaker, Mr. Patrick Yu, who is a general manager on bearings manufacturer. And Patrick will address us about the people live and work in peace and prosperity in the world. Please, Patrick, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick. I'm the general manager of a business that manufactures, sells, and develops bearings. We have lots of customers from Taiwan as well as from other countries of the world, including Asia, Asian Asia, America, Europe, and so on. Because my work, I always pay attention to international events, such as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, United States, inflation, the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, etc. I also need to be aware of the circumstance in Taiwan, including labor issue, cross-strait economic and trade development, Taiwan's trade issue, etc. My responsibility is to manage the company well so that the employees can work without concern and that all departments can function regularly. I also have to make sure that our clients receive high quality products on schedule. Moreover, I have just begun to focus on subjects like energy development and ESG, sustainable development issue. As a member of Global Village, everything that happens in the corner of the world affects our lives, from large countries to small individuals. Mutual understanding and peaceful coexistence are needed in order for the Earth to develop sustainably. Because of this, I am particularly touched by the International Day of Living Together in Peace. In order to serve as a reminder for the international community to cooperate in promoting peace, tolerance, inclusivity, understanding, and solidarity among humans, the United Nations has declared May 16 as the International Day of Living Together in Peace. It is the duty of the government to create a society that is open, democratic, and justice. For first and foremost, instead of turning into slogans, the government needs to face the mistake of the past and rehabilitate it, and carry out the transitional justice. The people have to granted the government to authority to handle their affairs, but a few dishonest officials have abused this authority to persecute the populace, causing great suffering. Some people lost life and properties, but more seriously, social unrest and even national revolutions. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, they say. Democracies are concerned of power disparities that can threaten their foundations. Taiwan's first direct presidential election in 1996 was an important milestone in democracy. But it is not free for authoritarian interference. Prosecutor Ho Kwan-jen unjustice fails cases, which was pursued for 27 years, had just Black Letter as its foundation. The Control Yuan designated the Taiji Man case as a significant human rights protection cases. The third criminal trial found the organizationals not guilty. No text applications was established, and it was given compensation from state of unlawful detention. However, Taiji Man is still mired in malfunctioning executive Ralph Meat Grinder. This case is insidious authoritarian remnant of democracy, where the rule of man minimizes the rule of law and severely damaged Taiwan's democracy. In the past 27 years, we have not given up our insistence in justice, but have been more active in developing many paths of justice for Taiwan society. We have actively set many milestones on road of justice for Taiwan society, guiding Taiwan to the true path of light. For many years, on December 19, we have taken to Kaidagalan Avenue to call for a true reform of law and taxation consciousness saves Taiwan. When the Human Rights Tower of Light monument was unveiled in 2016 with the slogans, "Human rights first, no more wrongful cases," vindication of 1219, and the Human Rights Monument Taiwan takes off, we are able to observe the development of democracy. The vindicate of 1219 and the end of persecution of Mao named century mark a significant development in execution of legal tax reform, as well as the first step toward the actual application of transitional justice. We should not get rid of residual position of authoritarianism, return to the normal track of democracy and the rule of law, and give the next generation hope for the future. You and I are not outsiders. The world can turn new page with peaceful coexistence. Thank you very much.
Thank you also very much, Patrick. And yes, you are right. It is the duty of the government to create a society that is open, democratic, and just. And instead of turning into slogans, the government needs to face the mistakes of the past and to rehabilitate it and carry out the transitional justice. Indeed, the people have granted the government the authority to handle their affairs. And when it is the case that the government should answer for their mistakes, to do it. Thank you very much for your insight. And now we move to our next testimony, which is done by Mrs. Grace Su. She is a new graduate, and she will speak about do not destroy harmony through greed. Please, Grace, the floor is yours.
Hello, dear scholars and speakers. My name is Grace, and I am a college student preparing to study abroad. As a citizen of this world, it is my responsibility to create and live in a society full of peace and harmony. In this ideal world, everyone would listen to, respect, and appreciate each other regardless of nationality, gender, race, religion, or other status. I believe this is the message that the International Day of Living Together in Peace is intended to convey. This important day also encourages people to communicate and resolve disputes with each other in a positive, dynamic, and participatory process. At the age of 12, I was diagnosed with a very rare disease, fibrous dysplasia of the left cheekbone, causing severe compression of the gums, nose, optic nerve, and skull-base vessels. To save my life, I underwent 3 surgeries from June 2022 to January 2023. These surgeries have had a tremendous impact on my life. Because all of my left cheekbone was removed, I had to face many challenges in accepting the drastic changes in my appearance. Not only was my body covered with large scars, but my mouth could not open and close like a normal person. So I would drool involuntarily. I lost the opportunity to meet new friends and to meet up with my former friends. Faced with this severe damage to my appearance, the titanium pieces on my face, and the many stitch scars, my mother reassured me that this was a medical miracle, that I was Black Pearl, the sister of Dr. Blackjack, and a female steel warrior, and that she hoped I could face myself with positive thoughts. After almost a year of living at home and in the hospital, I have complained about the harshness of the test I put through and felt unhappy and even inferior because of my looks. But I'm grateful that my family and I have the opportunity to become 太极门弟子, to receive guidance from 师父, and to learn hard Gongfu with my brothers and sisters. As a result, whenever I have negative emotions in my mind, I can quickly change my mind into a good one. And with the positive guidance of my family, I can get out of the darkness inside. In the process of sharing with my brothers and sisters, I received sincere encouragement from all of them. And this positive energy helped me to affirm myself and to inspire others. I also realized that inner peace is the first step to pacify myself and others through repeated revisions. Having a steady and calm mind is the only way to inspire myself to face the challenges of the unknown with courage. People often hurt each other because of greed and destroy their relationships. The 1219 human rights persecution case of 太极门 is a good example. This is a case that started in 1996 by prosecutor Hou Kuanren, who abused his power, and then a small group of NTB officers who created a fake case for the sake of bonus money. It has been delayed for 27 years and still no real vindication. Although I was not born at the time of the case, through my participation in street protests, forums, and protest marches on the Katagalan Boulevard, I saw that Shifu, brothers and sisters, were all expressing our true aspirations to government officials in a peaceful, calm, and righteous manner. Back in 2007, the criminal court ruled in 3 trials that Tai Jingmen was innocent of all charges. But the government officials who broke the law did not correct their mistake, but instead added to it by further auctioning off the sacred place of practice for Tai Jingmen Shifu and弟. Taiwan is my home country, and I do not want to see Taiwan degenerate into a country without peace, justice, and human rights. Therefore, I solemnly call on the Ministry of Finance and the NTB to immediately revoke the illegal tax bill and apologize to all Tai Jingmen Shifu and弟. I also solemnly call on the Executive Office to rescind the illegal enforcement and return the sacred place of practice to the Tai Jingmen Shifu and弟. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Grace. And very touching your testimony and wonderful way of saying that people often hurt each other because of greed and destroy their harmonious relationships. We should learn from this lesson and afterwards to be able to offer to each other a warm understanding, accepting the perspectives and learning together to create harmony in the society and in our relationships. With this, we thank you very much to all Taijimen practitioners, DISI, for their important testimonies in order for us to understand and have an insight view upon the Taijimen case, and also to understand how all the actions of the Taiwanese authorities affected their lives during time. And with this, I give back the floor to the moderator of this event, Mrs. Carolina Hess.
Thank you so much, Camilla Marin, for all of the comments and the introduction. And I would like to thank all of the DISIs for their testimonies. And now I would like to invite Mrs. Willie Potre, the director and co-founder of Human Rights Without Frontiers, for the final conclusions.
Thank you. Some artists, writers, thinkers, or philosophers think that peace can only be based and achieved on spirituality. Carolina Maria Hess titled the introduction to this webinar, Spiritualities and World Peace, a long road of transcultural dialogue. In her introduction, she said that the aim of the International Day of Living Together in Peace is to accept the differences between people, groups, and cultures. She emphasized that we are beautifully different from each other, and yet achieving peace is possible. She said that peace is a noble idea, but also a practical necessity to be able to live and realize one's full potential as a human being, as without peace, there is no freedom. She presented 2 examples of activities for peace related to spiritual currents rooted in the late 19th century. The first was the work for universal brotherhood, despite differences of race, gender, or creed, promoted by the Theosophical Society. The second was an example of Nicholas Roerich and his pact the Treaty on the Protection of Artistic and Scientific Institutions and Historic Monuments, signed in 1935. 1 century later, or almost 1 century later, Taijimen is working for world peace in many ways, but also effectively involving world leaders. She emphasized that in the context of Taijimen and peace, we should not only focus on what activities the movement promotes, but also that Taijimen itself experiences unnecessary conflicts, constant harm, and unequal treatment, which has been going on for over 2 decades. The International Day of Living Together in Peace was established to mobilize the efforts of the international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity. We should therefore also focus on the mobilization of the world community so that the Taijimen could live in peace. Tolstoy and Gandhi also thought that peace can only be based on spirituality. Peace. Peace. Is it a magic word or a dangerous illusion? The debate about peace and pacifism has been reopened with Russia's war on Ukraine and raises many questions. Is the cessation of hostilities peace? Is a ceasefire equal to peace? Is peace at any price better than a no peace situation? Will negotiations imposed by indecisive fighting between two equally powerful military forces on the battlefield lead in Ukraine to an agreement that may be called peace? Is a frozen conflict equivalent to peace? What is a so-called peace when it is imposed in one way or another by third parties because they are horrified by the massive scale of casualties and the destruction of vital infrastructures for a state? Marco Respinti said that peace is not the absence of war, and rightly so, according to me. If there is no peace in the minds of potential enemies, the fire of war keeps smoldering and can start again at any moment. There is no peace without justice, Marco Respinti also said. In the war that started on the 24th of February 2022, there is on the one hand an aggressor using extreme violence, massively violating international law. It's Russia. On the other hand, there is an aggressed nation, Ukraine, that the aggressor wants to destroy. This is a situation of self-defense, where a thief burglarizes an apartment to kill the proprietor and his or her family, become the new owner of the flat and everything that is inside. Who can tell the victims that they should accept to be stolen and killed? What is peace? The lesson of this dramatic tragedy on the European continent is that there is not only no peace without justice, but justice must come first to really have peace, lasting peace. No compromise about the restoration of justice. If one wants something else than a cosmetic peace without any efficiency and any sustainability. Quoting Marco Respinti, I will say, if humans compromise with error and evil, they never have peace. This is why peace always goes hand in hand with justice. And I will quote him again concerning his conclusions. Quote, webinar after webinar, we addressed a number of relevant topics, aptly connecting them to the Taijimen case, to explore and rediscover what went wrong in human relations and try to suggest ways of reparation. So the Taijimen case serves as a paramount of human unrest and solution to it. The Taijimen sufferings can teach many. Taiwan does not live in peace with the Taijimen's case. It lives in the absence of war, but it will not live in peace until the Taijimen case remains unsolved. End of the quotation of Marco Respinti. War, peace, violence, and non-violence are topics that have inspired many philosophical and political debates, as well as books and films throughout the ages. A famous Russian writer, Leo Tolstoy, has addressed the issue in his famous novel War and Peace, published in 1869, is known worldwide. How to live in peace when one of his main concerns throughout his own life. A first philosophical question concerning all wars is, who is responsible for launching a war? Is it the sole political leader who decided to start the war? Aren't each of the generals, their officers, their soldiers co-responsible for the wars they are waging when they turn a blind eye to their conscience? What is heroism? Where is the human value of heroism? Where is the red line separating heroic or so-called heroic deeds and war crimes? Some follow their conscience or the teachings of the Bible when they are called up for military service. They declare themselves conscientious objectors, and in some countries, they accept to go to jail or to perform a civil service longer than the military service. Those who have never anticipated such a challenging situation as a war leave the country. Those who get an enrollment notice to go to war and have no possibility to escape have no other choice than to obey the military orders or to prioritize their conscience, sometimes at a very high price. Questions again. Shall I become co-responsible for killing or mutilating other human beings, destroy other families? Is it a defensive war, or is it an unjustified war of aggression? Should I turn the other cheek? Everybody has to find his own answer in dialogue with his own conscience, to live with it, and nobody can blame them for their choice, but at least they will have questioned their conscience and listened to it. In his presentation, Massimo Introvigne said about Tolstoy that he was a radical pacifist, but he didn't condone aggression and injustice. He added that, and I quote, he would not disagree with us if we said that for him, peace is not primarily a political achievement, but it comes from the individual conscience. And this is, of course, an essential teaching of Taijimen, unquote. Taijimen has been a victim of injustice for over 25 years. It has chosen to fight for justice with peaceful means and without any hatred. which is very Tolstoyan, Massimo said. Indeed, Leo Tolstoy, the Russian pacifist writer, privileged the path of a non-violent solution to conflicts and never suggested that injustice should be tolerated. Taijimen wants to solve its case and to live in peace with the Taiwanese political authorities. But this can only be achieved if injustice is acknowledged and justice is restored. Otherwise, it will be a travesty of justice and a travesty of peace that would objectively reinforce injustice and corruption. And this is not what Taijimen wants. Several Taijimen Dizi also contributed to the debate today about how to live in peace. First, human beings should live in peace with themselves. If they cannot, it will be difficult for them to live in peace with others and with the whole world. Nelson Mandela, another giant in recent history, is a good example of someone who learned in prison for 26 years to live in peace with himself first, before being able to live in peace with his persecutors and the persecutors of his people. Mandela once said, and I quote, "In prison, my anger at whites grew less and less, but my hatred of the apartheid system grew more and more." Later in his tenure, he worked to abolish segregation, to achieve racial reconciliation, and to eliminate poverty and injustice. The capacity to live in peace is not something that is given at our birth. It is something that each of us, like Mandela, has to learn from his or her own life in interaction with our human environment. What is important is to start walking on that path, and Taijimen Dizi are doing that way. Thank you very much. And I think that after me, that will be a video for the conclusions.
Conscience in your heart, conscience in my heart, conscience in our hearts. Conscience is the guidance of the soul. Let us tell right from wrong. Conscience is the guidance of the soul. Gives us wisdom to tell true from false. Conscience is the calling from the soul. Guides us to do good deeds in our lives. Conscience is the eye of the soul. Lights up our lives and lights up the world. Conscience is breathing everyone. We are the ones with keys to open it.